Alright, so last class, what we started off with was this guy right here. So, or we ended off with, sorry about that, not started off. So we ended with this guy right here where we've had some of these details kind of cut in here. We show the details that we have. And what I want to do now is kind of finish this out and kind of address some things that I see that I don't like and I want to fix in there, just because, you know, it's part of training my eye, training your eye to see the little details that make a model what it is. And that is going to really set you guys apart from the humdrum or the hoi polloi of other 3D artists out there, is your eye for detail and the level of attention that you're willing to give into a lot of your assets, just to make sure that it looks right. And you should be your hardest critic, right, at the end of the day, and that should help you guys, propel you guys to the next level. So we're gonna address some funky issues that I see that I had with this guy, and then I'm gonna try to add a little more life into our little rope down here, and I'll show you some techniques to get some of those changes or those additions that we want. So let's go. Alright, so as usual, I gotta turn on no board just so you guys can see what my keystrokes are, and this will hopefully help you guys not have so many questions. Alright, so we're gonna start down here with this guy, and what we want to do is I want to make sure that you know, right now it's very geometric, and you can tell that it was modeled, and the idea of this stuff is to make it look like it's either hand painted, hand drawn, or it's very fantastical, it's loose, it's supposed to be cloth freeing, you know, so you want to give it some of that life. And since we don't have that in there yet, I want to go ahead and just add it myself. So there's a few things I can do to do just that. The first thing I can do is go into my modifier tab once again, and I reset my my layout here so that you guys see what I see for the most part. So hopefully that doesn't throw you guys off if you don't see something that's similar to what you got. So I'm gonna throw FFD 4x4 on here just to see if this will do what I want, because I just want it to, you know, you see how like now it kind of looks a little more, you know, ribbony, like somebody kind of tied it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I just took it, all I did was grab the center of these guys and then just kind of pulled, right, just to give it that little bit of that life that it's missing, like somebody tied it and put it on there. And yeah. Alright, I might want to just pull these guys in a little bit, you know. Just make sure, you know, you don't want to pull too far out so you're not clipping the wood. Alright, so we've got some ribbony looking stuff right now. So this is kind of what I was looking for. Something like this. Looks a little more natural. Alright, so that's something simple to do. Alright, the next thing is I want to address this part right here. So if I look at the reference, if I hit just unhide all, right click, unhide all, I can see that in my reference it kind of swoops down. Right, it kind of swoops down and it doesn't have this little bend up here, so I want to address that. So to do that, right, one of the tools I showed you guys how to use is that soft selection. This would be a perfect time to use that soft selection. I already had it selected, but what I would do is I would just go in here, find the edge that I want to affect, and then what I can do is go into my soft selection here, and I can just use that to pull it down and then reduce the fall off, right? Because it might default where your fall off is like right there. You just want to make sure you pull your fall off to the area that you want it to affect, and you'll see it gives you this little rainbow pattern, and red or yellow, you know, is warm, and that's where, you know, you've got the most control. And then as the color dissipates to the greens and blues, it just has a fall off effect, so it affects those areas less. And then by the time it fades all the way completely, you're not going to be affecting that part of the mesh at all. So yeah, that's, you know, that's part of it right there. Just making sure. Now I'm gonna increase this a little bit more. I'm gonna reduce this fall off right here. So now, right. I just want to make sure the shape that I'm getting when we're coming down here is more of that swoop. I know that's a very technical term, the swoop, but yeah, that's what we're looking for, something like that. And we might need to pull this guy up a little bit to achieve it. So let me fix it on the local, making sure. There we go. All right, something like that. All right. So now that is what we want. Looks good. Throw our shell modifier and our turbo smooth on. We should get something a little better. All right. Cool. So now we've got that. We've got a lot of the edge detail that we were looking for. Just gonna maybe increase this guy just a little bit. So now all we need to do is, you know, isolate our mesh, Alt and Q. And now I want to delete the other side. Now I'm going to just select this guy right here because I don't think those changes were affected on the other side. So what I want to do now is go into, let me just hit F4 so you guys can see. All I did was I turned these off just so it goes back into the edit poly mode, and I want to redo my my symmetry modifier. All right. So I'm just going to go back into my edit poly up here. I'm going to throw another symmetry modifier on it. Throw another symmetry modifier on it. Hit 1 on the keyboard. Alright, and that's going to pull up my gizmo. That's where my, I can just, actually let's Alt Q to isolate this guy. Alright, and as you can see, we've got some weird stuff going on. So all we've got to do is select 1 on the keyboard and then just move it in like that. All right. Now when I shell and turbo smooth, that's the geo that I get. Unhide all. All right. Select my mesh. Alt select. Alt Q to isolate this guy. Just like that. Right, and now we've got something that that looks like what we want. And what I want to do now is I want to make sure that my symmetry modifier, I'm gonna hit 1 on my keyboard right there. I'm just gonna pull this guy out just a little bit, just so I can get. There you go, just like that. Alright, so now that this guy is done, I can just hit F on the keyboard. Actually, what I would like to do is, yeah, just mirror the whole thing. Let's hit the mirror. By default, it's not gonna clone it, so it's gonna say clone selection. You can say no clone, copy, instance, or reference. I want to make it a copy on the x-axis, and then I'm just going to select my model. And now what I can do is I can activate my snaps, snapping it by vertex, and I can just grab this guy right here and then bring it in. Boop, and it's going to snap that guy right in place for us. All right, it's that easy. And now we finished essentially the high poly of our bow, right? And once you guys finish this, right, this is what you guys should do for me, right? This is the next part. This is how you guys show me your work, right? So this next part, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys how I would go about rendering like a still or something that we're gonna use for to show off our high poly mesh here. All right. So to do that, I'm just going to hit P on the keyboard, make sure I'm zoomed into my mesh. All right. So if I hit Control and C, Control C, all right, it's going to create a camera for me, right? And if you look up here, now there's a physical camera that's been created. So if I hit P and move around, if I alt middle mouse to move around, you'll see that where I was in the world, it's created a camera for me right there. And to go back into that camera, all I have to do is hit C on my keyboard, right? To get back out of that camera, once again, P on the keyboard, it'll take me to my perspective. C on the keyboard will take me to my camera. If I have more than one camera in my scene, if I hit the C key, what that will do is it'll bring up a list of all the cameras that I have created in my scene, and then it'll allow me to choose, right? But if you don't, if you only have one camera in there, hitting C will take you directly inside of the camera. So now you're viewing it from the lens, from the eyes of the camera, you're looking at your model. So now anything I do, anything I move, I'm not moving in perspective space, I'm moving based on the camera once I'm in the camera and I'm driving the camera, all right? So if I do this, you know, pan move over here, right? That's, I'm panning the camera. I'm not panning the scene, I'm not moving the model, all right? So that is what we want to do, all right? So I've kind of got it a little tilted just to give it a little perspective. But another thing I can do is, you know, just come like right here. I want to give it, just give us some, just like a little bit of like a perspective, a nice, you know, a long perspective down that we're looking through. And I want to make sure that my model fills up the screen as much as possible, right? That's my job. I don't want a lot of negative space. Negative space is the killer of good art, right? The reason is because it's wasted space. I want to fill up, you know, I want to give you as much information as possible. So I've got all of this stuff in here, and even so, okay. What I'm doing right now is I'm showing my safe frames, right? And what your safe frames are, they are what your camera is going to render out. So this is what your camera sees based on the aspect ratio that you've set up in 3ds Max. That's what you're seeing when you hit Shift and F. And this helps you because now I know that if I just render this out of 3ds Max, I'm going to be clipping this little piece off. So I know that I need to just kind of zoom out a little bit to give it a little bit more breathing room, because this is what it's going to render out if I rendered something out. All right. But I'm probably not going to render this out. I'm just going to probably do a screen grab of it, in the sense that I'm just going to render out something from our you know, a little render menu over here. All right, so, oops. Let's go back to that view that I had right here. And right now I'll show you guys. So if I have my view ready to go, like so, now I'm gonna hit Control and C again, right? It's made me a second physical camera, right? So now when I hit C, like I told you guys earlier, now it gives me a list. What camera do you want to look from? Well, I want to look from camera 1. If I hit C again, I can go to camera 2. All right, so this is a multi-cam setup that I have going on, all right? And if you're ever like, oh man, I don't know where my camera is, I don't know what's going on, right? If you go into this little drop down in your perspective view, you've got your lights, you've got your cameras in here, and you can select what camera you want to look from. All right. So that is how I would do that. So now the biggest issue that you're going to run into is, well, you've got all of these, you know, every time you create something, it creates an icon for you inside of the viewport. And whenever you render it out, I don't want to see, you see this highlighted yellow nonsense? I don't want to see that when you render your stuff. I don't want to see this little blue target box, this blue line. I don't want to see any of that. All I care about is the model. So to clean up your viewport, to clean up your scene here, you're going to hit Shift C, and that's going to get rid of all the cameras. Not in the sense of deleting them, it's just going to hide them for you while you try to do like a screen grab or something. All right. So the next thing I want to do, so now let me just show you. I've hit P to get out into my perspective. So if I hit Shift C again, right, you see that it just hides all of our cameras, and it gives us a much cleaner viewport to work with, and we're not like trying to maneuver around these lumbering things. We can just hide them. We've created them. We're good to go. All right. So the next thing I want to do now is create some lights for this guy. So I'm going to select, let's do Arnold light. Let's do an Arnold light. And I'm just going to select my little Arnold light here. I'm going to drop it into my scene. All right. So this is new stuff, guys. I haven't shown you guys how to do any of this stuff. I haven't showed you guys how to make lights and stuff yet, but this is how I would go about just doing a quick little render out. So you've got these different viewing modes that you can use as well. So what I want to do is I'm just going to turn this guy into a sky dome. Actually, let's leave it as a quad. Let's go into my settings to make sure that I am rendering out of Arnold. HDTV is on. All right, this is fine. So all I did was go into my render settings here, and I turned it into flat color. Now I've got my light, and this isn't going to be our final render, but it's going to give us kind of like an idea of that painterly look, a little bit of that Zelda-ish look that you're going to get. All I did was turn on high quality, which gives us better looking shadows. As you can see, our shadows went from just nothing, right, to we've got these kind of softer shadows going on in here. And what I did was I added this light to kind of help us accentuate that. So I've got it kind of lighting the top, and now the bottom is in shadow. All right. So this is a very quick way to get yourself some lighting. As you guys can see, it's updating in real time, right? And that's something that 3ds Max is trying to do recently, is kind of up their in viewport render game, so you're not forced to have to render things all the time and hit the render button and wait for your render to calculate and all that stuff. They want something that you turn on inside the viewport, you set up your lights, and then you can just get a decent render out of there that'll help you out. So I like this kind of top half tone render, and as you guys can see, if I let it go, what it does, it kind of starts to soften that out. It starts to soften those. So over time, it's like an iterative, progressive render, so to speak. So, but the moment I move it, it's gonna have to recalculate those. So don't just move it and then click whatever the first thing you, because it's not finished rendering. So you might want to give it a few seconds to kind of catch up and calibrate. So now that we've got our light in here, we're only gonna use this one light, just because I kind of like what it did from the jump, you know. But if I wanted to, I could just shift drag, make a copy, and this is what I usually do, which is I'll just add like a little color to it or something. So maybe like a red, and then maybe increase the intensity just to get us something with some color in there. But you know, it might not show up as well as I want it to. Let's see. Maybe if I did like a, no, not clay. So if I did like a default shading, it would give me some of that color. But because I'm doing a flat render and I want it to kind of look cartoonish, that's how I would get that kind of look. Because when it comes to painterly textures like this, what they're relying on, they're not relying on a lot of normal maps and stuff. It's just artists painting stuff and then painting the light information that they want in there. So it takes away a lot of specular reflections and stuff like that, because it's that painterly Zelda-ish look. So now we've got our light. So if I select my light, you can see I've got this line through. If I deselect it, my target goes away, but it's still in the way, right? So you know how we pressed Shift-C to get rid of the camera? If we did Shift and L, it'll get rid of our lights. It's not gonna delete it. Once again, it's not gonna delete it. What it's gonna do is it's gonna hide it from our scene to give us a cleaner scene to work with. So now what I want to do is just hit C on my keyboard to bring up my camera selections, and I'm just gonna select camera 1. Let it do its thing. And whenever I'm rendering these out, right, guys, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking at, okay, how much space do I have over here? How much space do I have over here? How much space do I have on top? Is there something I can do about that? Does my model give me the opportunity to do something about that? If it doesn't, then I'm fine. If it's like a skinny model, if it's like a skinny asset like this, then it's fine that I've got all this negative space. But what I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna composite something. I'm gonna make a few different renders, then composite it together so that I have a kind of a model sheet for this, right? So this is, I'm just gonna nudge this guy over so I've got some kind of evenness over here, and just give it a second. And now that I've got my my model kind of ready to render, what I'm gonna do now is go into my tools, and in this preview / grab viewport right here, right? So we can capture a still image. What I also want to do is I want to turn off my safe frames. I don't need those. So I'm just going to go to Tools, Preview, and then I'm going to capture a still frame. What you always want to make sure is you want to grab this little box thing over here and grab it out of the way, because what's going to happen is if you've got it on top of your model and you accidentally hover over it, it does this little yellow selection tool, so it knows it's a way to let you know what you're going to select before you select it, right? And there's a way to turn it off inside of 3ds Max. I'll show you guys how to do that one of these days, but with this time I want to show you guys how to quickly get some renders out and then composite those and then save it out. And this is how I want you guys to do the bow for me. So there's a video on it. You guys don't have to ask any questions. Just say, hey, watch that video and you'll know how I would like for my stuff to be presented to me. All right, so I've got my my view right here. Now I've got my grab active viewport, and what that's doing is whatever viewport you have active, that's what it's going to grab from. All right, so now I can just give it a label name. So I'm just gonna do bow, then grab. So you guys didn't see it, but it grabbed the image off screen. So now I've got my image here. All right, so now, and as you guys can see, I've got my bow label at the bottom. I haven't saved this yet. This is just an image inside of 3ds Max. You haven't done anything yet. To save it out, you want to hit this little guy right here. And this, for you younger folks, this is called a floppy disk. It's a old school flash drive, essentially. You put information on it. You guys probably don't know. You guys probably never used a floppy disk. I used to have games on my floppy disk, so it's something that, you know, if you knew, you knew. You know, it's one of those things, and it went the way of CDs and things like that. So that's what that is. So this is your save button, right? You save information here. So you want to save it here. You're gonna just find a location to save it, and I'm gonna put this in my review. I'm just gonna put this in bow. Just gonna write the name bow work in progress underscore HP, right? WIP is an acronym for work in progress, and HP is an acronym for Highpoly. So that's little 3D jargon for you guys to start getting used to. All right, so let's see. Do I want to do? I'll do a PNG, and then enter, and then hit OK. So it's gonna save that for me. I'm gonna hit C. I'm gonna go to my second view here, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Tools, preview, capture still image. I'm gonna move this guy out of the way, and then I'm gonna go bow 2. I'm gonna grab this guy, and it's gonna grab it off screen for me once again, like that. And I'm gonna hit that floppy disk to save. HP, if I select this guy, it's gonna populate this. I'm gonna just do an _1 here, .png. Nope, PNH is not a, file save, sorry about that. _1.png, not PNH. That's not a file extension. And then I have my alpha channel turned on. Okay, this is all good to go. All right, so the next thing I want to do now is I want to start compositing this stuff together. So to do that, let me grab Photopea. I don't know what photo manipulation software you guys use. If it's Photoshop, GIMP, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you guys find some way to composite this stuff together. So Photopea.com is free. It's essentially Photoshop on the web. So what you can do now is just do a file new. In 1920 by 1080 is perfectly fine. And what you can do then is just find your images, locate wherever you save them to, right? And then if I right click, should be open. Okay, I just navigate to where it is on my I'll navigate to where it is on my drive. In my review file. So I'm just going to drag these guys right in here. All right. So now I've got my 2 images in here that I want to use. So the first thing I usually do is I'll just do an Alt. I'll select my brush, hit Alt, and that's going to bring up my color picker. I'm just going to pick the color from the background, create a new layer, hit G on the keyboard to bring up my paint tool. Using the photo bucket, I'm going to click once, and it's going to just throw that entire thing in the background. And the reason is because what I want to do is I want to just start masking some of this stuff out. And masking is just a term, a simple way of saying I want to cut out my object from it. All right, so there's a few ways you can do it. You can try using the selection tool here. So you can try using your selection tool. Or I'm just going to do a simple box just to get the idea across. Select this guy. Let's hide this guy actually. Just like that. All right. So if I hit Control Alt and T, I can scale my objects in here. So maybe center it a little bit. And if I go back into my alpha mask that I created over here, if I click B, which is the brush, I'm using the brackets to increase and decrease my brush size. And then what I can do is, I want to make sure this is smooth, like a smooth transition. So I'm just going to increase the size here. If I start to paint, it's got a middle gray on right now, so it's not going to make everything disappear all the way. So what I want to do is I want to switch it back to the defaults. So I'm going to hit X on my keyboard, and X switches. If you look over here to the bottom, it switches between my foreground color and my background color. All right, so I want my foreground color is black, and that's going to help me just remove some of this extra stuff in here. All right. So now I can just grab this guy, pull this guy down. Whoops. Hit Alt Control T, Control Alt T, and I can just select this guy. Move this guy further down a little bit, just so it's got a little breathing room. All right, and this is a decent presentation. All right, so I'm just gonna Control G these together. What that does is it groups them into a folder, and I can just do bow work in progress, and I'm gonna duplicate that so I have this. Right, I'm one of those guys where if I make a mistake or something, I like that a little escape hatch for myself where I can go back and say, oh, okay, I've still got my original and I haven't gone too far. So I'm gonna right click on this guy. I'm gonna merge these layers together so now they're one and the same. I'm gonna do that for this. What I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna merge all of these together. So now it's just one image. All right, and now what I can do is throw just a slight sharpen filter on there, right? You see how crazy that looks? I want to dial that back. I'm going to dial it back, dial back the radius, right? You just want a little bit to make it pop. All right, so now we've got our model ready to go. Next thing I want to do, my name, and then the bow, work in progress, Highpoly, and then you put the class modeling in rendering 1. Right? If you were in the industry, you wouldn't put a class there. You would put whatever the project is. If it's the Zelda project or the whatever project you're working on, you would put that name in there. But because it's for my modeling and rendering 1 class, that's what I want you guys to put for your text. And let's make it a white font, a white text, not white font. And then let's find something that doesn't have serifs in it. And if you guys don't know, I think the serifs are the ones with the tails. So like little things like that, those are serifs. So you want something, you know, simple, cool. And these guys come with a bunch of free ones, a bunch of free free fonts that you can use. So I'm just going to increase the size a little bit just so you can see my name. Put it in one of the corners, right? Something uniform that I can keep similar. And I might, you know, even just to be a little fancy, throw a little box behind it that you can see. Maybe throw a color overlay. Do maybe a black and then a pattern overlay where I'll do like this little, they've got this cool little hexagon-y kind of pattern going on here, and I might just use that for it. Maybe do the blue, and then on the, maybe multiply the color onto it, or maybe a screen, reduce the color. All right, whatever your style dictates, right, that's what you do. Do a stroke, do a white stroke. Right, and then you can keep this template for the entire class. You do it one time. Now you can save it out as a template for yourself and then use that over and over. So all I've got to do is file export it as a JPEG. Make sure I've got the quality saved all the way up. Save that out. And then make sure you've got a good naming convention. I totally forgot to do that. But now I can just post that onto our thread and boom, we're good to go. All right, so that's going to be it for this class. I know I pushed it all the way till the last possible minute, but I made it just in time. All right, so this is what I want you guys to try to work on over the weekend. Try to get your bow as close to this as you possibly can. We haven't moved on yet to the arrow or the bag, but I feel like if I take it slow and steady, it'll give you guys a chance to really get up to speed with this stuff. And I feel like it'll definitely help you guys out in the long run. So let me see, where is my... So yeah, that's going to be it for today's class. Let me go back to full screen, then that.